Today in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how we can go from a static image like this to a moving image like this. Alright, so we're going to start off here in Photoshop, and then later we'll be moving on to After Effects. So the first thing we're going to do is come over to New File here and create a new project. So I want it to be able to fit in our After Effects project, so I'm going to make it 1920 by 1080 and then hit Create. So now the first thing we're going to do in this project is actually add our picture in. So I'm going to come over to File, come down to Place Embedded, and then find our picture that we want to make move. And we're going to hit Place and then hit Enter. So I have this famous painting of Napoleon here, not for any real reason, but what I thought would be nice is that it would be really easy to cut out with the quick selection tool because there's a lot of contrast and different colors, so I don't have to do too much by hand. So I thought this picture would be a good fit for this project. And I know that this painting doesn't fit our aspect ratio here. We have some white gaps on the side, but we are going to be extending this background later, so that shouldn't be too much of a big deal right now. Alright, so what I always like to do is actually make a duplicate of our original picture. So I'm going to come over to our layer over here on the right click, and then duplicate layer. And then we'll just name this Napoleon 2. And then I'm just going to turn off the visibility of that first layer there, just so we have that as a backup. Now with that top layer selected, we are actually going to cut out this horse and Napoleon. So how we're going to do that fairly easily is come over here on the left side and choose the quick selection tool right here. Now I have my quick selection tool really small right now, so I'm actually going to turn that up by coming up here and turning the size up to something like 12. Alright, so I'm going to hit Command plus to zoom in here, and then we're just going to start cutting out this horse. So I think I'll start somewhere easy right here, and then just hold, and then drag it like that. This part's going to take a while, so I probably will fast forward here in a second. And if you ever want to deselect a part of the image, like say something like this over here, what you could do is just hit Option or Alt and then just go over the spot that you don't want. Now I do think I'm going to fast forward here because it might take a long time to do things like these fingers and everything. Just try to get as much detail as you can, and then we can cut that out. So I'm going to fast forward here. Alright, so we have our selection made, and that wasn't too bad at all because I was able to use the quick selection tool here. Depending on the image that you use, you may have to go in with the pen tool here and manually select what you want, which is going to take a lot longer. So just keep that in mind when you're choosing an image, just so you know how long it's going to take. Alright, so we have our selection made here, and the next thing we want to do is turn this into a mask. So we could just come down here to this little option here and click that to make it into a mask. So we should have it cut out just like that. Now we're going to come over to the right here at our layer and then right click and then duplicate this, and then we'll call this one background. Then we're going to move that background layer just under that other layer, and then we're going to select the cutout part and then right here choose invert. So then we should get our background back. So now if we deselect that top one, you can see that it's missing, but if we put it back, it's right back there. So the next step we want to do is actually fill in this background part right here. So we're gonna make sure that we turn off our top layer, also turn off the actual background, so this white back, so then we have this checkered thing here, and then we're gonna start filling this in using Photoshop's AI Generative Fill tool. So we're going to come over to the left here and then choose the lasso tool right here. Now you don't just want to select the entire image and then generative fill that because it's just not really going to work. So you kind of have to go little by little. You also want to keep in mind stuff that you want to keep the same. So what I mean by that is like this rocky part right here. We're going to do everything in this rocky part here before we move on to anything that's not behind that. So we're just going to select that like that, so we get another selection. Then we could just hit generative fill right here and then generate. And that should give us a nice look. All right, perfect. So that looks really good actually. It does give you 3 images here, so you can choose which one you like. If you just tap these, all of these are pretty good, so we're just gonna leave it at that first one there. So now we just gotta go in and do that with a little bit of everything. So again, I'm gonna fast forward here just so we get this done a little quicker. All right, there we go. Now we have our background here. So this feature in Photoshop is really pretty incredible, as you can tell. I did have to get rid of some of the people on the side here because it didn't really know what it was doing with those soldiers, so I had to get rid of them. But other than that, I think it looks pretty good. So now we have to take care of this mess here on the right. So we're gonna select all the layers that we just made with that tool. So starting here, and then hold shift, and then go to our background layer. We're gonna select all of these here, and then right click and convert to a smart object. And then we'll just call that our background. Now we have two layers that we're working with, our background here and our subject. Now the next step here is to actually create some different layers with our subject. So I want to separate him from the horse here and this little cape in the background so they can all move on their own. So how we're going to do that is pretty much exactly the same as what we just did. So I'm going to duplicate our subject here. And then I want to get this cape separated and him as well. So I'm actually going to create a smart object out of this. So convert to smart object. And then let's go back to our quick selection tool and then just start selecting him and this cape here. So this should be a lot easier because we've already cut this out. All right, perfect. So now we're just gonna create another mask from this. So click down here and we have our mask. All right, so the next thing that I wanna do is fill in this spot here so we have an extension to this cape. So we wanna make sure that all of our layers are turned off except for the one that we're using right now. I'm gonna turn this into a smart object. And then I'm just gonna use the lasso tool here and then just draw in the shape of the cape that I want. And then we're gonna use the generative fill once again. And there we go. I think we got something that works here. I like that. I'm just gonna fill this in here so it connects, and then I think we'll be golden. All right, I think I have something that works here. So I do want to get rid of this in here. So how I'm gonna do that is just combine all of these together by making them a smart object. And then I'm just gonna use this quick selection tool and then select that spot right there, turn it into a mask, and then with that black selected, invert it. And then I'm just gonna combine those once again. All right, and then I'm just gonna turn this back into a smart object one more time. All right, now we can turn that subject layer off. And then with the horse here, I just wanna get rid of him on here completely. So now for this horse layer, I do wanna keep these legs connected here, but I do wanna get rid of the top half of him. So once again, we're just gonna select everything we don't want to attach to this and then get rid of it and mask it out, just like we've been doing. All right, so we have all that selected. Now we just want to make sure this layer is already a smart object so we can cut some more out of it. And then that pops up this option down here to create a mask. And then we're just going to cut that out. But I want the horse this time, so we're going to select that, cut out, and then hit invert. Perfect. Now we have the horse and then the legs attached, but that won't matter. Now we do have some stuff left over like this up here at the top. So we just want to get rid of that with the eraser tool. We'll do the eraser tool and then just erase any unwanted stuff from up here. Nice. Now we just have the horse. So I'm going to make this another smart object again. So now we have the background, the horse, and then Napoleon. But we want him behind the horse so we don't have that cape in front. So I'm just going to move him behind the horse. All right, perfect. Now with these three layers, we are just about ready for After Effects, but I do want to extend the borders over here just so we have plenty of room to work with. I'm actually also going to extend it up top a little bit too. So how I'm going to do that is just select all the layers that we made, come up to Edit, and then Transform Scale. And then we could just turn that down a bit and then bring it right in the middle. So we could just come over to our background layer here now, select that, and then use the rectangle tool over on the left. And then just fill this in with that generative fill once again. Perfect. Now we have an extended background. So hopefully with whatever image you're using, you don't have to extend the background as much as I had to do it here. But for this project, I had to do this. So I'm going to combine all the aspects of the background I just made into one background layer. The last thing we have to do here in Photoshop is export our background and whatever our subjects are all separately as PNGs, so then we can take them into After Effects. One by one, I'm going to turn off all these layers just so we have this layer. Come up to File, Export As, and then make sure that it is turned into a PNG up here so it's transparent. Then just create a folder and export all of these one by one so you have 3 different PNG files. Alright, so now we're in After Effects and we can actually animate the cutouts that we just made. So I'm going to create a new composition and make it the same aspect ratio as my Photoshop project. Now we can import the cutouts that we just made. So I'm going to right click, import, file, and then bring in these layers that we just made. And then we're going to bring them down to our timeline. And then just make sure they're in the right order of what we want. So we obviously want the background in the back. There we go. So now we can animate this using the puppet pin tool. So I first want to animate the horse, and then we can adjust Napoleon so he fits on the horse still. So I'm going to select the horse layer, come up to the top to the puppet pin tool right here. So starting with the legs, I'm just going to make a ton of pins on the back of the horse because I don't want this to move and be changed really at all. All right, perfect. Then we're going to put a pin right here, a pin here because we want these legs to move, pin here, and then just around here. We also want to move the head, so we'll put some pins up here. You may have to move the pins depending on what limbs you want to move, but I think this is going to work for this purpose. So now with all these pins down, so now I'm going to select all of these pins that we just made at the front of the horse and none of the ones at the back. So we're going to hold select and then just select all these pins. Then we're going to move the player head just a little bit, like 5 seconds or so, and then move this to somewhere that we like. I'm going to go a little higher so it looks like it's going higher into the air. Then I'm going to deselect all these and just select the one at the front of the head and move that up a bit as well. So let's see how that looks. All right, so it looks like the horse is going higher into the air. I do want to adjust some of these pins back here just so it looks like the back of the horse is moving with it. But we want to make sure that it's on the same pinpoint as the other ones. So we're going to open up our mesh, open up the form, open up one of these, and then hit this little arrow just so we're on the exact moment where this keyframe is. And then I'm just going to select these ones and then just move them just a tad. So it looks like it's moving with the horse. Let's see if that looks okay. Yeah, I think that looks okay. Maybe we'll actually select all of these and then just move it back a little bit. Let's see if that looks natural. Yeah, that looks natural enough. So as you can see, the legs move here without Napoleon right here. So we are going to have to move him so he looks like he fits on the horse still. So I'm going to come to the very beginning of the player head where everything else is at. And then we're going to close that, open up Napoleon here. And then the position, I'm going to make a keyframe there and then go to where our first horse keyframe is, or a second one I mean, and then just move Napoleon into place where he should be. So let's see, let's line this up. Perfect. Now let's take a look at that. Yeah, moving with the horse. Now I actually want to make him move his head in this cape a little bit. So I'm going to do the exact same thing as I did with the horse with the puppet pin tools. Select Napoleon, come to the very beginning, and then let's make some pins. So I want to anchor the bottom of him. Put a few here. And then I'm going to come to that second keyframe. And then let's adjust some of these. So I'll select these two and then move it just a tad. Move maybe his head a little bit so it looks like he's going backwards. And I think that should be enough. Let's see how that looks. That looks pretty good. So let's ease these keyframes a little bit. So I'm going to make this fit. I'm going to open this up wider. And then on the horse, I'm going to open this up. And then all of these puppet pins down here, we're going to select all of these. And then open all of them up. And then we'll just select every single keyframe that we made. Right click. And then select Easy Ease. Then we'll do the exact same thing with Napoleon. We'll open up Mesh, Deform, select all of these puppet pin tools, open that up, select all the keyframes, right click, and then easy ease. So we'll open both of them up so we get absolutely every keyframe that we've made. Select all of them. Then bring the player head to the same amount of distance as these two are apart from each other, something like that. And then with all those selected, hit Command C and hit Command V to duplicate it again. And then we'll just keep doing that until it fills the entire timeline. So Command C, move that, move that, move that. So now we get the same keyframes over and over again, and the horse should just keep moving. Now, since we have all these layers apart from each other, we can actually do one more cool feature. So I'm going to right click, open new, and then create a camera. And then that's okay, hit okay. Then where we see this cube here, if you don't see that, you can just toggle this switch so you get it up. We're going to create a cube in all of these layers here. Then we're going to select this background layer here. And then on this Z coordinate, we're just going to keep pushing this back pretty far away. So this is going to separate the background from the horse and Napoleon. Then I'm going to open this up, open transform up, and then adjust the scale so it fits the entire frame. Then we can come into our camera, open up transform, and then we can play around with the position. So if I move the Z here, you can see we get closer and the background is further away. Now the only problem with this, in this photo, you may not have this issue in different photos, but since the feet are touching the ground and we could see that here, you can see how they remove themselves from the background. So if we want this effect, but we don't want to see the feet, we're just gonna have to move the camera to where we don't see the feet. So we're just gonna move it up a little bit, and this is why we extended the background there. And then I'm gonna zoom in, I'm gonna make a keyframe, then I'll jump to like 15 seconds, and then move in a little bit too. I'll move it up also. So let's see how that looks. All right, so one last thing we can actually do to separate our subject from the background is to come over to our effects and presets and type in blur. And then we're going to be using this Gaussian blur right here, and then just drag that onto our background. Then we can increase that to something small like 6 or 7. And then we get a blurry background, so our subject is separate from there. All right, so now we're all finished, and we can take a look at our final result. This is a great way to bring some life to an image. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.